Good to be with you, Chris.
So, Doctor, the idea of we understand that you can't know definitively how long anything takes here, but it's jarring to hear the president or anybody say, it's not about politics. This is going to be a couple of weeks and then we'll see, maybe July, and then hear about a plan for 18 months. What can you tell the American people?
Well, all of that is not incompatible with each of the things that was said. As I told you before, Chris, when you have an outbreak like this, if you look historically at what has happened more recently in China and in South Korea, and now what's going on in a very dramatic way in Europe, you have the outbreak goes like this, and then it spares up like this, and then after a while it goes down. If it's left to its own devices, you'll get the maximum peak, a lot of suffering, a lot of illness, a lot of death. What our responsibility is, and what we are doing very, very vigorously right now, is to put into play the kinds of things that would blunt that curve. I've said that many, many times.
Right.
But when you blunt the curve by modifying society, particularly with the rather dramatic physical separations, which people call social distancing, you can blunt it, but it is unlikely that you're going to make it completely disappear. If we're lucky, it will happen. But what more likely would happen is that we do this, go down, and if it's still around, we'd have to deal with it next season. That's the challenging issue. The good news about that will give us time to test and prove whether drugs are safe and effective. And as I've told you many times, the vaccine, whose trial we started just a couple of days ago, in a year to a year and a half, we should know whether we're ready to go. And that's not the only candidate.
Right.
So it is not untrue that in 18 months or next season, we may see another flare, but we'd be much better prepared than we are right now.
Right, and there are a lot of variables at play. I get it. I just wanted to hear it from you because, you know, hearing it from politicians is one thing. Hearing it from you is something else. I'll hear you. I'll let the audience decide. Quickly, is it true that you guys are starting to get a better feel for some drugs that you think may be able to help treat some of the worst cases?
Yeah, yes. The answer to that is yes when you say a better feel, but no definitive proof yet, Chris, and that's important. There are anecdotal reports that there are a number of drugs that are already out there that we're repurposing, drugs that have been used for other diseases.
Can you fast track the FDA?
Anecdotally reported. Yes, I mean, the FDA is totally on board with this now. I was on the phone like a half an hour ago.
So if you've got a good basis to try it, you'll be able to try it. Because I had been hearing there were going to be snags, and they were afraid of what drugs would expose people to. But I mean, if they're in a life or death situation, it's like you might as well throw everything at it.
Yeah, but Chris, if you do it in a protocol, you can, you know, there's a balance between just throwing the drug out there, which is not a good idea. But you don't want to make it unavailable to people. So what you do is you do a bit of a compromise. You do it under the auspices of a protocol so that you could make it very heavily available, but at the same time you're learning something. Right. You're learning how safe it is and does it really work. We need to do both. We need to make it available at the same time as we learn whether or not it really works and whether it's safe.
Now, young people. They've been nonchalant about some of them. Let's not generalize. But young people have been given the impression that if I get this, I'm going to be okay. So some of the social isolation seems a little overblown for them. Let's leave it for the old folks. Now we're hearing about cases of young people getting hit hard abroad and here at home, being in extreme distress with cases. What changed?
Well, nothing has changed except we learn more and more. Again, remember, Chris, a couple of times ago when I was on your show, I told you this is a work in motion. It's evolving. Every day we learn more and more. And when you see reports from other countries, and now even in our own country, you realize there are things you didn't fully appreciate. But getting back to young people, there are two reasons why young people need to take this very seriously. One, you yourself could be in harm's way. I mean, obviously, most of the difficulties are in people who are older and or who have underlying conditions. And many of the young people who have actually gotten into trouble did have underlying conditions. But you're not out of danger. But even as important is that you have a responsibility, a societal responsibility to protect the vulnerable. And you do that, interestingly, by not letting yourself get infected, because you need to make sure that you don't inadvertently pass on the infection to someone who would not fare as well as you fare because you're young and healthy. So there's two pillars to that: yourself and your responsibility to society.